Hey, Adam, thank you so much for making time from your busy schedule and joining me. How are you doing?
Great. No, it's nice to be here today. It's been a good day, good week so far, and yeah, enjoying, looking forward to being on the show.
All right, same here. A pleasure having you here. So, just for context, these conversations will be part of our series where we explore how IT leaders are navigating today's challenges. We will have you introduce yourself first, and then I'll give a little bit about GrowthAmped after you go.
Okay, sure. So my name's Adam Salmon. I've been working in the IT industry for about seems like a long time, 27 years professionally. Although I started when I was a youngster, coding away back in the 80s, and I've worked in IT consulting in a variety of cities in the United States. And I founded my company Inflectra in 2006 to address the problems with QA and the fact that there were not good software tools available to help people in the quality industry deliver quality software. And we've been around 19 years in business. It's it'll be our 20th year next year. We're a privately funded company, still bootstrapped, growing at a good rate. And we recently become an Amazon Web Service partner, which is very exciting. And as you can imagine in the industry, generative AI is changing everything all at once around software development and software testing. And so a lot of my conversations in the past year have been around how is AI going to change everything around software quality?
Excellent. No, thank you for that intro. AI is definitely a buzzword these days. So let me just tell you a little bit about what we do at GrowthAmped. We specialize in helping IT service providers scale their revenue and grow their business among solving other challenges. And I'm always learning from leaders such as yourself. And the goal here on this podcast is to explore how you're navigating your day-to-day challenges, your outlook on what you know the future holds in terms of technology currently at hand, as well as generating thought leadership for current and future industry leaders.
Sounds
That's
good.
a little bit about myself. Thank you. So the frame of this podcast is basically we'll start with your company background and your role, industry trends that you're seeing, and then we'll discuss your current challenges and where you want to be in the next 6 to 12 months, and of course the long term as well. We'll then wrap up with exploring any next steps, if that makes sense. The whole conversation should be about 30 to 40 minutes. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
All right. Well, yeah. So, as the CEO, tell us more about your role and how do you fit in with your the big picture apart from
Right.
your
I
leadership,
mean,
of course.
well, it's interesting, right? When you're the CEO of what initially was a small company, your role, you're basically doing everything. So in 2006, when I started the company, I was still CEO. So it's interesting. In 19 years, my job hasn't changed. I've had no promotions, but my role is completely different. So that's the irony of being a founder in some ways. When you're a founder of a startup, you're basically the coder, the marketer, the CFO, the CEO, depending on what other skills you have, probably the chief legal officer, and certainly HR, because it's just usually a small team. And as the company
Exactly.
grows, you spend less time doing all of those things and a lot more time trying to manage the team, set the vision for the company, and set the direction. And also, the other thing I would say is I'm spending a lot more time now being a thought leader externally. So I go to conferences. I think I mentioned before we started recording that I was in Dubai last week for the GITEX show, and I was in Lithuania for a testing leadership event conference called TestCon. And so a lot of my time now is spent being in the air, being on travel, going out to events, whether that's an AWS event, because we're a partner, going out to a testing event, a QA event, that's our industry, or a general IT event. Like GITEX, my role is to be out there, being the public face of the company, being active on LinkedIn, being active on social. 10 years ago, that wasn't my role. My role was to manage the team. Well, now I've got someone else managing the team, and so I think as a CEO, your role evolves very much as the company scales and grows, which is the exciting part. If you like that, if you don't like that, probably not a good role. I know some founders end up not being CEO. They grow to a certain size and then they say, I'm not really into that side of the role. I love managing the team. So they'll become the COO or the CTO and they hire a CEO. So I think you don't have to always follow the same path. But I think whatever you do as a founder, your role will change in some fashion, and you have to be intentional and explicit that as this company grows, if I'm successful, this is what it needs from these different roles in the company. Which roles do I want to fulfill, and which ones should I hire for? Another example would be I was the CFO and the bookkeeper till recently, and we just hired an outsourcing bookkeeping and CFO and FP&A company. They manage all our financials. They're going to do all our financial projections. They're doing all this really powerful modeling around the health of the business, the growth. And I really didn't see until I'd seen it in action how much this benefits you. So I'm a big advocate now. I'm a converted to professional CFO as soon as you can, because I wish we had one 5 years ago. Now, looking at what we've been able to do in the last 6 months.
I guess it's when do you take off all the hats that you could put on other people's heads and uh, start focusing on strategy alone, right? And as
Right.
the founder, it's your baby. You definitely want to give it all the love and attention and make sure that nothing falls by the wayside. And so
Yeah. And that's
it's not. I would imagine it's a lot more difficult than it sounds from the outside looking in. Like, oh, what's the deal? Like, the financials, the marketing, we can find people do that. So, a lot of appreciation over there on
right,
that
right.
front.
It's interesting. I think one of the hard things about being a founder, especially as you get to an intermediate stage of scale, is that you can't do it all anymore, but you do have a very strong sense of what's the right thing to be done. So I've seen companies fail where they literally outsource everything day one. They're like, "Well, I'll just be the CEO. I'm going to hire a finance person, hire a marketing person," but that marketing person has got no guidance. They've got no context. They're just
Yes.
going to follow what the industry is doing, which is okay. But as someone who had the vision for this project in the first place, you know the brand, you know the messaging, you know why people buy the software, you know the product market fit more than anyone will ever know, but you haven't got time to execute on it. So I think that's always the balance in all of these things, is that as it's the right time to do the thing isn't always at the beginning. It can be a bit later because sometimes you don't know the right person to hire because you don't understand yet what the business's direction is. So I think, right, as you said, in theory, it
Yes.
sounds easy. Outsource everything that's
Yeah.
not core to the business. Every business book tells you, every management consultant will tell you that. But most management
Hmm.
consultants will not run a small business. They consult to large companies. So as a small company, it isn't always as easy at that. And you will have people, you can't afford a hat for everyone. So you might have to say, well, my marketing person, can they do sales? Can my marketing person also do something else? Because we don't have the money to hire a team of 10. We have a team of 5. So I think that's the other thing.
Yeah. And I must say, when I looked over your portfolio of all the products that you have and the solutions, I was very impressed with how many there are, because you would think relative to size that companies tend to have a lot fewer when they're still bootstrapped. So lots of kudos to how well you've been able to execute on, the whole Spira suite or the Rapiz or the Chronodesk. So feels like there's a lot of energy and, the trajectory is looking pretty good with everything you guys have.
Well, thanks. It is hard to manage a product suite. So that's always
Yes.
a decision point. Do you have one product? And for us, it was partly, I won't say accidental, but in the QA space, there's definitely a role for tools that help you manage the QA, manual testing. The thing is, an automation tool, there's a lot of automation tools out there. We integrate with a whole bunch, but we decided to have one in-house as well, which is our Appease platform, because so many people were struggling to integrate other tools, and we obviously do integrate with other tools. And there's also a large amount of that revenue stream. And the other thing is, what we found is that not every one of our customers will want that automation suite. They have their own tools, but the ones that do will be stickier and deeper. So for us, it was a way to have that sort of T-shaped company, which is you have
Yes.
your large array of customers, but you also can go deeper in certain customers and have a greater stickiness and a greater penetration with them. And that's why having for us a second product was a good way for us. We generally sell the automation tool to existing Spira customers. And that's true of a lot of our products. I would say our Spira suite is our flagship. And the other products that you probably saw, Chronodesk, Rapiz, the AI, most of those are they're add-ons or they're complementary. We're not selling them greenfield into a client that doesn't have our Spira suite. So that simplifies in some ways the go-to-market, because otherwise, if you have 3 separate products that you're selling independently, as a small company, that's a very hard go-to-market.
Yes.
It's just hard to do. So I would say for us, it was good that they fit together as a jigsaw, and we know what our land product is, we know what our expand product is, we know what our cross-sell product is. So having a defined go-to-market strategy is as important as the products themselves, I think.
No, that's excellent points. As far as go to market strategy goes, I feel like you've got a good focus in terms of the platform and the add-ons, and definitely, with the AI integration, I am seeing a lot of software vendors that it's a given. It's not if, it's when, right? People get their LLMs integration set up with the platforms they're trying. I still remember a little bit of history over here. Um, I was doing QA back in the Mercury days.
I know those days.
So you
We test director is the tool we use. Well, that was the one we wanted to
yes.
beat. That's what Spyro was meant to be the replacement for.
Yeah. So I thought, when I was fresh out of college, Mercury was the hot buzzword in QA. And
Oh yeah,
I thought, QTP and Load Runner and the Quality Center, I thought those things were like the best thing after sliced bread, especially getting into the job market. I was doing a lot of, I was setting myself up to in the QA world. And I didn't know something like this existed because I was coming from a very different space. In fact, I was in Dubai before I came here, and that's how I know about GITEX.
cool.
So yeah, no, that's awesome. Just great sidebar there. So, what does a typical day look like for you, Adam?
Okay. And I suppose for me, the day is if I'm on travel, not on travel, because as I mentioned earlier, increasingly I travel a lot more than I used to when I started the company. So when I'm back here at home base, which is where I am now in the DC area, partly I'm catching up from being away. We have sort of scheduled cadence meetings. So one thing we try to do is, and we're a virtual company. We weren't before the pandemic. We were more in office. We're now virtual. We have people all over the world in multiple time zones. And so we have a lot of virtual meetings. And being the CEO, I have my management team. And so in any given week, maybe let's think of the week. In any given week, I have my standing meetings, which are meet with my management team, meet with our CFO team and the management team. And then I'll have some various other standing meetings, which will be I'm involved with some of the product reviews where they'll come with this is the next sprint for the next 2 weeks. I don't necessarily run the teams anymore, but I also have an opinion on what features, what's the scheduling, what are customers asking for, what are the most important features should be in the next version. I want to at least see what's going on. So I have probably a scattering of those standing meetings. And so any given day, we'll have some standing meetings around that. And then the rest of the day will be typically things like maybe meeting with a customer as part of customer success. For some of our larger customers, I still want to check in with them, meeting with certain partners that we have. We have certain solution partners. We're doing, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're doing a lot of close partnership with Amazon, and that's actually our LLM of choice. Sorry, it's a tongue twister, and
Mhm.
we decided actually to go with Amazon exclusively rather than just pick whatever's out there. And that helps us because we have a go to market strategy with Amazon. So I do therefore have some standing meetings with Amazon. And when we register deals in our CRM system with our sales team, some of those deals will get synchronized with Amazon. So we get an Amazon rep saying, well, can you collaborate on this deal? And
Mm,
sometimes I'll get brought in then if it's more technical or more strategic because they want my opinion. But generally, I'm a lot of meetings, generally a mixture of internal and a lot of partnerships and some customers. I think that's the broad brush of the day. And then a lot of decisions. So a lot of the rest of the time is going to be on Google Chat or Slack. We use Google Chat. It's like Slack. And it's going to be, hey, Adam, we're thinking of this, this, and this. What do you think? And sometimes I've got to be very careful. I don't want to answer every question. Sometimes I feel like, well, this isn't really my decision. This should be the head of sales' decision. Why haven't you? Have you gone to them? So the one challenge I think with virtual companies and virtual chat platforms is it can be very easy to inadvertently micromanage or cut out the team. So someone comes to me with a question, I'm like, well, I could answer the question, but CEO, there's a lot of weight with your answer. If I tell them the answer, it'll be like, it's on high, it is decreed that. And sometimes my answer might just be, I'm thinking this, but I'm not like sure of it. So one thing I would say to any founder or CEO as your team grows is think about when you're deciding to make a decision. And sometimes you don't want to make the decision. You want to have the team. So you might say, well, talk to this person. And at the end, maybe come back to me. Because if once they get the answer from you're going to shut down all discussion. Not that you mean to, but it will just happen naturally. So I think for me, it's also important to be intentional around, is this a CEO decision or is this a head of marketing decision? Is this a head of product decision? Maybe you're coming to me just because we're on chat together and I'm awake. And with the different time zones, that's often weird. Is that sometimes I'm awake at 6, 7 in the morning, maybe because of jet lag. And someone asked me a question. I'm like, well, just because I'm around, the right person's going to be awake in 2 hours. I'd rather you ask them. I mean, I don't want to make you wait, but it's just I'm cutting out my management team and undermining their authority. So I think it's an
yes,
interesting thing. You want to be available, but not too available. And that can be hard, especially in today's modern distributed, you know, virtual companies where the old days of like I would go to this person's office and I would knock on the door and I would know that I would go to the head of sales and then we'd go together to the CEO's office if we couldn't decide. How does that relate? How does that happen in a virtual company? It's different.
exactly. Is your leadership team also located in DC, or are they spread out just like the other?
We've been intentional about not spreading it out too far. So
Okay.
there's 4 members of our leadership team. Three are in the DC area. One is in. where is he? Colorado. So
Okay.
anywhere in the US, we have our leadership team. That was kind of one of our rules. Our wider team is all over the place. We've got Asia Pacific. We've got people in the Philippines, Australia, Morocco, France, Ireland, UK. Because that's where the customer, Buenos Aires, it's where the customers are. So we need them to be in the time zones. Distributed team is everywhere. But the core team, we decided we didn't want to have them too spread because it's very hard to be, I don't know, cohesive as a management team
Yes.
if we're always going to be meeting at very odd ends of the day. So that I would say is that we haven't yet gotten to the scale where we could have a team in Europe yet and be part of the leadership team. Eventually, as we double in size, I could see us having a mini leadership team in the EMEA and a larger one in the US, and we'd have
Hmm.
then consult conversations between them, but we're too small. So I think that's one thing you have to be careful about is, to me, it's more the time zone. Is if you have a distributed company, think about when are you going to meet, who are you going to meet, where are you going to meet, and that might limit some of who, when you hire someone, you might want them in a certain time zone. So when we're hiring a
Yes.
US resource now, we don't hire for a particular city. We mostly say this is a US national job, but it can't be in Hawaii, it can't be in Alaska because they're
Sure.
too far out of the core time zone.
Sure. The core 48, basically.
Yeah, basically. And then a few states we might say no, thank you because of the taxes and all the crazy payroll regulations.
Uh, I hear you. As far as your partnership with the AWS goes, from what
hmm
you've said, I guess it goes beyond hosting, and it's more of a strategic level partnership that they're bringing you leads and they're helping you guys talk to more new
That's
people.
yeah. I would say that's where we're headed. It still takes time. Now they're a hyperscaler. They're huge. We're tiny.
Yes.
So I think you have to always be realistic. When you're a small company, I mean, they partner with Datadog and
Hmm.
Cloudflare and CrowdStrike and
Right.
these really large companies, and we're not that size at all. So just know that when you're going to partner with a very large company like a Microsoft or a Google or Amazon, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort. But on the other hand, because they're so much larger than you, the effects are amplifying. So I would say what we've been a customer of theirs, as you mentioned, for hosting for about
Okay.
10 years. And for the
Hmm.
last, 8 years, that's all we did. We're a customer, sorry. They're like a utility. And reliable, great, no problems. But then about 2 years ago, 18 months ago to 2 years ago, we had a quarterly business review with Amazon and they suggested, why don't you become a partner? And they're trying to build up their partner ecosystem. And the reason why is if you look at the industry, Amazon traditionally sold to builders. They sold to people who built cloud platforms themselves and used Amazon as like us. But Amazon's trying to start to sell to more business users, people who might be buying Microsoft or Google products because they have a lot of business apps. So it's in our interest to start getting more sales leads and having investment from Amazon to help us grow faster than we can as a small company without diluting our equity or diluting debt. So that's been really
Hmm.
helpful. For Amazon, it lets them, by bringing on companies like us, it lets them compete with the Microsofts and the Googles of the world without having to build products themselves. They can have basically a catalog of business apps running on Amazon exclusively with Amazon AI behind the scenes, and they can go to market, and that way they can go after a business customer that doesn't need an EC2 instance. They don't need a cloud platform. What they need is a payroll system or a QA system they need a specific business need, which happens to run on Amazon, and Amazon is the utility powering it. But the business buyer is not buying Amazon. So for Amazon, it diversifies their ICP. For us, it's a way for us to scale without having to raise money, potentially.
No, that's actually a brilliant positioning strategy, and I think it will definitely result in net new logos. And 2 years now, you said you guys have
Yeah,
been doing
18 months.
this.
We did 18 months. I would say we're
Okay.
in the 18 months. I'm going to reinvent again for the second time. We've had some inbound leads from Amazon. We've had a lot of assistance on existing leads. It just takes time there because a lot of times Amazon has so many partners and has so many customers and so many account
Right.
reps that
Right.
when you may have a sales team of 10 people, they have 10,000 people.
Yes.
So your same 10 people are talking to 10,000 different people. So they don't know you the way you know them in a sense. So that's one of the challenges navigating is you have to find, I think, a narrower focus where you could say, for Amazon, we are the best at QA in financial services in, say, credit unions or
Sure.
mid-sized banks.
Yeah.
Let's go after that segment together, and then you're going to work with the same people over and over again. And you start to build a reputation. But the big danger when you're working with any big company as a partner is you're going to be scattered so thin that they won't even remember. They won't even notice you because you're like here, over here, over here, over here. You need to go after a target repeatedly, so you start to
Yes.
come up multiple times, and that way you're building name recognition with the company.
No, that's definitely, I can identify with that. With a product suite as large as yours, do you guys do any type of education or certifications that can certify people that work on this? Because that is, sorry, this is a two-part question. So that was the first part of it, and the
Okay.
second one is there, if not already, do you guys have plans to provide managed services, professional services that your guys that have the stamp of Inflectra can say, hey, we can do this for you. We can deploy this. We can test this for you and add
That's a
value.
great question, and it's very timely. So the first part is, yes, we have Inflectra Campus, which is a online learning academy. We're using a third-party platform called Learn Worlds as the engine, and it's just rebranded as Inflectra Campus, and it's got free training, it's got basically paid training, and it's got certifications. And so we use that for partners to be certified and users to be certified. In terms of professional services, that's a very interesting question and timely because we're about to make a change this year. It's not yet been announced, so you're almost getting an exclusive here a little bit. Is that traditionally we've not done any services. I came from the service background working at Sapient, and that was the last thing I wanted to do. Let's have a product company, we'd be focused on products only. And the idea was we would do customer support only, and when it came to services, we would use partners. And we do have a partner network that helps us. We've just been struggling where, I'll be honest, a lot of our customers need a little bit of help and partners can't staff a little bit of help. Partners like, the consulting firms, they want to staff a lot of help. And we have some customers that need for a person for 2 years, and they're very good at that. Our problem has been this: I need someone for 2 weeks, or I need someone for 10
Sure,
hours. I need a few
sure.
hours here, a few hours there. Our partners aren't really geared to staff that. They don't know the products well enough that they could find anyone in their company. And so we're going to be launching our own professional services division starting this year. We're in the process of going through a beta program right now. And that will include things like we already have accelerators, which are pre-packaged upfront service offerings. We're going to be delivering those internally. And we're also going to be adding a premium level support package, which will offer higher tier support. And then we're also offering some other ad hoc consulting options as well, and we're going to be building up our consulting arm. The idea is that we will do product services. We don't want to get into general services. I mean, that's where Deloitte, Accenture's, they do this really well. And we have a partner network. We've got many partners who do professional services. So we want to distinguish between, is this a unique Inflectra product problem we're trying to solve? And this, in which case, it could be one of our service members. Or is it a generic agile transformation, AI in the life cycle, maybe a QA engagement, or test automation? That's where we want to bring a partner in 100%. We wouldn't touch those. So our game is to be, again, very specific to our product. But I think where we are definitely moving into that service side of things, mainly because of customer success and adoption. Customers are increasingly expecting help in onboarding, and they're
Yes.
increasingly willing to pay for it. So right now we're doing it for free. Well, they do something, they'll pay for some of it.
Sure.
That's always the challenge, right? But I think that the challenge is always is that if you don't provide a paid option, people will, and you expect them to self on board, then they're either going to fail or you're going to have to do it for free anyway. So this way, we want to have some free offerings, but also have some paid offerings, so that way it's a graduation where this is what you get for free with the product. You get some initial onboarding assistance, not just self-service, because we recognize that I think people need that. And then beyond that initial point, you can graduate into a more managed service offering or a one-time engagement or a partner. There's some different options you can go with. But just saying you're on your own, here's the URL, doesn't work so well all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think after we wrap the recording, I have something to offer,
Sure,
something,
great. Oh, thank you.
maybe some connections that I can help you with. So let's shift our focus to industry trends for this part of the podcast. What major shifts are you seeing in your industry right now?
I mean, the obvious, unfortunately, I hate to be obvious, but AI is the obvious one. Agentic AI in particular is more maybe the less obvious one. So 2.5 years ago, everyone was talking about generative AI, and we were quick to market. I don't know if we were first to market, but we were amongst the first. We enabled AI in our products, generative AI in both our test automation tool and our test management lifecycle management tool about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So really, around the time that ChatGPT first came out, within 6 months we had an in production version that was limited, and it required using your own LLM. We've now got a fully managed service where we manage the LLM. It's running on Amazon Bedrock. That's now the solution. We're adding new functionality every couple of weeks. On the generative AI side, we added an MCP server 6 months ago on one product. We had another MCP server 3 months ago on the other product. So I would say we're definitely on the trend line where the industry's at. The big trend, though, I would say that we're all seeing is And it's, for the longest time, software development has been the last craft industry, it feels like in the way that, making the analogy I use is making a shirt. Like if I buy this shirt's from Amazon actually. I don't, no one's hand sewing this shirt. There's a machine that makes shirts, and there's someone at the end of the line who inspects the shirts and makes sure that the shirts, are the right design, the right size, and whatever. These machines to do the inspection. So software's not been that way. Software has been humans are coding in a programming language an application based on a spec written in a human readable format, like a user story or a requirements document. And then testers have either manually tested it by literally clicking through the application, or more commonly now, manually writing an automated script, which sounds weird, but I handwrite you mentioned QTP. Well, that's people still use that, but they're often using tools like Selenium or Playwright, which is a coded
Yep.
script, but humans are
Yep.
coding automation. So that's kind of the state of the art. That's still hand making shirts. That's craft engineering. We're moving towards more of a factory model where, I mean, with vibe coding, you can do this already in things like what's called Lovable. But Amazon released something called Kira, which is like a next generation, and it's basically a spec-based development tool, which is I'm going to write my requirements in a human readable format, say Markdown or text or whatever it is, and the machine will code the application. And now machines can test it, will start to test the application. If it can read the business rules, it's supposed to do this, it's supposed to do that, it's not supposed to do this. Let me try testing it. So the machines are going to write their own tests. They're going to write their own code. And they will come back and tell us what's the gap, where's the bugs, what are the issues. And then as humans, we would inspect the results like a quality inspector at a factory.
Sure.
Well,
Sure.
that's what it tells us. Well, I think you just need to do some more testing in these three areas. Come back when you've done that. Oh, I've done that. Okay. Now I'm going to report all these issues, and these issues go into the spec, and the machine will then rebuild the application, not the humans. So we're moving towards a human-directed, machine-built software development lifecycle, which is like nothing we've ever seen before. And that's sort of the one trend. The second trend, which is in parallel, is the systems that we're building themselves are going to use agentic AI to do autonomous tasks. So we're using agentic AI to do development, we're using agentic AI to do testing and various other things. But the apps themselves that are being tested are themselves non-deterministic. We're used to the idea of a software that if I write instructions and test it 100 times, it will fail 100 times consistently with the same data, and it will pass 100 times consistently with the same data. With AI, it doesn't do that. People are using generative AI or agentic AI to do things like loan processing and fraud detection. And imagine you've got a million mortgages. What if 1% of those, or 0.1% of those, is incorrectly classified? That's probably a lawsuit right there, or certainly a giant regulatory fine. What's good enough? Because with AI, it may never be 100% consistent. But is it 1%? Is it 0.1%? Is it 0.01%? It's like there's a quality check, and we don't yet know how to do that. We don't know yet what that is. So I think that's the challenge for us, is that we're building a non-deterministic self-learning set of systems, and we're using non-deterministic self-learning systems to test them. How does that all work out? That's where the industry is in a major change right now.
No, that's quite the insight. So basically, humans are writing the criteria, generative AI is coding it, and then agentic AI is testing it.
Yeah, basically, yeah,
Essentially. So,
essentially, yeah.
okay.
And the app being tested itself is also AI enabled, to thus making the testing less consistent, even if it was being tested by machines.
Yeah. So this trend, this, let's just say a 3-stage or 4-stage trend, how has
Right.
it impacted your business and your growth strategy in terms of scaling your business?
Well, I mean, there's the AI trend more generally, which I think affects go-to-market and marketing, which I'll touch on that in a second. In terms of the AI as it affects software development, well, it means no one's entirely sure who your customer is anymore. For example, for us, we would sell traditionally to a product owner who wants a test management tool, product management tool. They've got a development team. The development team is maybe using something like Jira. Maybe the testing team is writing their own scripts. So the people we're selling to may not. Well, the business buyer, the economic buyer, is probably still the same person, but the decision makers and the influencers will be the development team, the testing team, the business analyst team. They may be gone. The people you're selling to, at least part of who you're selling to, you're selling a tool that's going to increasingly remove them from the equation. They probably don't want your tool. So whereas before we're selling a test automation tool the value proposition was, let's say, I'm an automation tester. I could write it in Selenium, it will take me 10 hours. I can use your tool that's more automated, more codeless, more AI enabled, takes me 5 hours. So as the automation engineer, I'm thinking like, oh, I want your tool because I can do my job faster and it's more exciting. It's less manual coding. But if that tool is going to replace me completely and do it in
Hmm.
1 hour, maybe I'd rather have my 10-hour coding tool back. So I'd say, so the challenge is going to be your ICP at the individual level. The
Yep.
persona is changing. It's still the same company ISP, and the ultimate economic buyer is still like the head of testing, or it might be the head of risk management, or the head of the CXO, or the VP of IT. They're still the economic buyer, but it's the influencers and the decision makers and they're the ones that are changing, and maybe at odds with the economic buyer. That's a big challenge. The second challenge, by the way, which I mentioned earlier, was as well as AI changing development for software development companies like myself, it's changing go-to-market for anyone doing B2B sales, which is, well, for example, how do we get SEO to work? How does SEO work now when we're not searching on Google? And if we are searching on Google, we're not getting a page of links. We're getting 2 paragraphs of text. How do you get in that text, for example?
Yes.
So yeah, and if you're searching on ChatGPT or Perplexity, how do you get
Right.
mentioned? So
Yeah.
it changes a lot of that. And then of course, everyone's sending more and more emails using AI-driven email outbound strategy using tools like Instantly. Well, if everyone's doing that, then everyone's having tools to filter that out. Everyone's sending more spam text messages. Everyone's sending more spam LinkedIn messages. So just there's so much AI is generating so much noise out there that it's making it harder for a small company from a go-to-market to get noticed, to get their content seen, to get their emails read, to get their phone calls answered, to get. So in the end, circling back, why I was at that conference 2 weeks ago and a week ago. Well, in the same way that if you look at music, more people are going to listen to live music than ever before because things like Spotify make music so available. There's so much of it that you want authentic experience. That in some ways, the better go to market is if you go to a live event, you meet someone, you actually may get that deal because you're actually present. So it's
Sure.
interesting how go
It's
to
full
market
circle.
just yeah, full circle exactly. It's
Yeah.
yeah. When I launched the company in 2006, we disrupted what was then the software B2B industry because our competitor at the time was Mercury at the time, or HP who bought them, and they would go to a demo with they would schedule a call. Hey, I'll come to your office. I'll do a demo on my laptop. We'll put on a projector. We'll have you all around the room, and we'll do the demo right, and then we'll discuss pricing. And when I first started the company, well, we went on Google AdWords and we said,
Hmm.
come to us. We'll do a virtual Zoom, or it was GoToMeeting, I think back then. We'll do a
Yes.
virtual meeting. We'll do a demo. We'll do it all online, and we'll be a tenth of the price of Mercury because we're not covering that whole overhead. Well, now we've got it on its head because everyone's
Yes.
doing that.
Yep.
So
And
it's
now
funny.
people are craving that in-person connection, or
Yeah.
yeah. Definitely I identify with the challenge, getting emails through, getting your content seen, your message heard. There's so much noise that even like the positive messages get lost in the middle of
Hmm.
all that.
Yep.
So in terms, I want to take two different tracks here. So you talked about ICP. Let's touch on that real quick. So with all this evolution, how has your ICP changed 5 years ago, 3 years ago versus what it is today in terms of customers' expectations evolving with the technology?
That's an excellent question. So when I started the company, our ICP was basically anyone who wants a QA tool that hasn't got a lot of money. I mean, that was it. And we didn't say it that way, but that's basically what it was. It was we're going to be a lower cost version of what was Test Director, and you'll buy it online. It'll be cheap and it'll be easy to use and super modern. It'll be run in the browser. It'll be modern. So that was the ICP. You could write it, and then over time, other companies get into that space. Other companies start writing plugins for other tools, and so it becomes more crowded. And you realize that it's hard to service that many small customers. So you start to build a premium edition. We have Aspire Team, Aspire Plan. We try and broaden our offerings. And so over time, we start to refine our ICP to be, well, we're not the cheapest provider anymore. We want to be providing for a certain segment. And what we found was that for us, the most profitable, the most suitable for our business segments, the ones who cared about quality the most were the more regulated sectors. So actually banking, insurance, energy, utilities, healthcare, life sciences, manufacturing, and some of the defense and aerospace companies, automotive too. So if you look at those sectors, the common thread is that quality is not a luxury. if you're an e-commerce website, even actually potentially the retail is also in some ways quality. If your website goes down, you've got no customers coming in. A lot of people doing a lot of people buying QA tools. It's an in-house application. If it goes down, who cares? So we started realizing that where our most important success would be is where we have customers that care about quality, are fanatical about quality, and the cost of quality failing is immeasurable. It's lives lost, safety, massive financial losses, regulatory fines, you name it. And so we redefined our ICP to be those are the companies we want to have in our company ICP. And the other thing we started to refine was the personas in the company. So we have a persona, a better definition of our personas. Who are we selling to? It turns out it wasn't often the testers. It's actually more likely to be the head of QA, or it could be the product owners. Because even though a tester likes our tool, they like using it, they don't have the economic buying power. They don't necessarily have the decision. They use what they're told. So we wanted to make sure we were selling to the person who decides what tools are to be used and explain to them the economic benefits of it. So I think the other thing is we had to tell not just what's the feature story, which everyone likes to talk about features, but what's the economic benefit. And I'd say we're still evolving on that. I think we've got a little bit further to go. I've been doing a lot of research on messaging, and we really wanted to find the pain in a very crystal way, which I think we sometimes haven't done. Because what is the cost of a quality failure? What's a productivity benefit? Those are very mushy things. You know, is it more fun? Is it more productive or less productive? Is it if you can tell someone that without this specific thing is going to happen to you, and it's going to happen to you in a month, that's much more concrete. So we're starting to look at how do we make our messaging even more actionable, concrete, so that people understand I need this for this reason. So one of the best examples has been actually we help people with their FDA audits. So if you're a software company, you sell to life science companies, you have to go through an FDA audit of your IT. Well, your audit that would take a week can be done in an hour. So that's very measurable. Like, wow, I get the benefit now. That's much better than saying, and listen, well, this is the strength of that. The strength of that is much stronger than saying, I can reduce your audit time by 90%. That sounds pretty strong. But if I can tell you that it took a week, now it takes an hour, wow,
Yep.
that's much more because we as
That's
humans have
like
a hard time with
90%.
numbers. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
90%, but it sounds better. It
Yeah.
sounds
Yeah.
much more. I think that's the
Yeah.
challenge for all of us is how do you turn a percentage, which is as a human, we hear all these numbers and we just believe them. There's some percentage, 20% faster, 30% faster, quality is 80% better. What does that mean? We have a hard time, I think, as humans. We want a story. What's the outcome? Who's the villain? Who's the actor? So I think as a company, we want to really get better at that. I think we're not there yet. So in full disclosure.
No, that's that's quite the change of ICP, and with everybody using the Claude LLMs of the world or the other software development LLMs, I feel
Right.
like this is a good space to be in, and making it accessible, the agentic AI
Hmm.
accessible to these guys, SMBs, right?
Everyone is
Would
talking
be
about development, right? If you look at any of these agentic tools like Cursor or Klein, or they're all talking about development, but no one's talking, yet again, no one's talking about testing. They weren't talking about
yeah,
testing. That's
correct.
what you go back to the Mercury days. Mercury was really, I mean, there were other tools. They weren't the only one, but they were the only one that really were out there. Whereas if you looked at the development side of things, back in even in the 80s, 90s, Microsoft, Borland, everyone had development tools. Everyone, Rational Rose, TogetherSoft, there were loads and loads of development tools. There was never much for testing. And that's still, I think it's gotten better, but it's still not the same. It's still not parity.
Yeah. Um, this kind of takes us into some of some of the next couple of questions. So, in terms of metrics, let's talk for a minute. What metrics are you most focused on improving?
On the business side,
Yes, on your business side.
I mean, yeah, I mean the classic one, of course, revenue growth year over year. I mean, let's not, that we care about that. The other one, for us, a very important one is NRR, net retained revenue. We want to avoid churn. I hate it when customers churn, especially for the wrong reasons, even for the right reasons. I mean, you spend all this time onboarding a customer, you get them up and running, and then finally someone new comes in, they want to go in a new direction. It's very frustrating. It's going to happen. You're never going to have zero churn, but really minimizing churn. The other thing I think, the other metric we really want to get better at, and we want to get better at measuring it is adoption. And I don't know what the industry term is, but adoption depth almost. Like, so if this is the product, they start using this bit of the product, and they use it for 5 years, but they never use anything more than this one bit. How do we get feature adoption, depth of product adoption? Not even necessarily buying more bits. Maybe they already have all the functionality they need, but they're not using 60% of it. So we want to improve our telemetry to understand what percentage of the features are they using. So I'd like to, one of the measures we really want to improve is feature adoption with the current customer. Then obviously there's other things too around upselling them into other product suites and so on and so forth. But I would say if they're not adopting your current tool well, then they're not going to buy any other tools, and they're ultimately
Yes.
going to churn. So I would say for me, that's actually probably the most important metric we want to solve. And that's one of the reasons why we want to get the professional service piece built out, is to help with that. And if we're successful, we can have a measurable improvement in that number.
Yeah, it's like a customer success factor, I think, right? You
It
get
is.
these tools, you spend so much time and energy and money getting them developed, but the customer's lacking of awareness and introduction of that professional services piece, or even a CSM to take over some of that day to day, or QBRs or MBRs, product roadmap visibility,
Right.
that type
All
of
of those
stuff.
things are part of it. Exactly. No, exactly. Having a cadence call, segmenting your customers too. You can't obviously meet with every single customer every month, but these
Mhm.
customers are the ones we want to be meeting with more frequently. But even the other ones having either some automation, having
Yep.
telemetry that tells you
Yep.
maybe they're using less of the functionality. That will be also a warning sign that they used to use these three modules. They've now stopped using this one. Maybe they bought another tool and they're using that now, which definitely happens. And we're guilty of it ourselves. And we use a variety of different tools for our own internal use. For example, Pipedrive for CRM. We use tools like Active Campaign. We
Mhm.
use Instantly. There's
Sure.
definitely overlapping features even there. And
Yeah.
so they're probably looking at us, the same way. So it's interesting. We can learn. So I was trying to learn from what our suppliers are doing. So when we have a customer check in with one of our suppliers, like say Pipedrive or Active Campaign, I'm like, well, are they doing it well? Let's see how we benchmark us against them. So you could even learn from your suppliers as well as your customers. I would say don't forget that you're using tools, how they treat you, and what's a good experience or a bad experience is a great learning point without having to learn yourself at your cost.
Absolutely. To wrap up this section, so in terms of the strategy here, what seems to be working well and what seems to be challenging on this while we're on this topic?
Um, what's work? Yeah, what's working well is customer retention generally. I would say we have a good retention rate. We have a 99 to 101% NRR monthly. It varies between those two. I mean, so it's generally strong. I would say what's not working so well is getting people to adopt outside of the area they first bought. Basically, other personas. So they bought the QA portion of the tool. We want to get the risk managers to use the risk management module, or the project managers to use the planning tools, or the time tracking, whatever bits that we think are appropriate, or the manual testing piece to add the automation. We're struggling to get that as much as we'd like. I would say we haven't. It's not as well oiled as it should be. That's an area where we could definitely do better.
So customer in the sales terminology, you call it customer farming.
Yeah,
Basically, in most cases, do
expansion
they
and
already?
farming.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. In most cases, do they already have access to these auxiliary tools that they're just not popping the hood in, wide enough to look at? Or
It's a combination of factors. Sometimes they already have tools that they feel like will work well enough, like they have an in-house automation framework, or they have another tool they bought. Other cases, it's just they're busy, and busyness is maybe the biggest enemy. I know you've got this feature. When we first did a demo with you 6 months to a year ago, we loved that feature. We just haven't gotten time to use it yet. We will get to use it one day. 4 years later, we never got to use it, and unfortunately, if we had got to use it, we probably would have kept the tool. But now, yeah,
somebody needs to take them by the hand and show them, like, hey, we talked about
yes.
this. So the follow ups, basically, I think, could
Yeah, one thing
use a
I think
little
that I would say that
consistency.
one thing that is working that we've done that's a bit different is having experiences from the other side. Many customers have a pre-sales team, and then when you buy, you hand it off to a customer success team. The danger with that has been we tried that for a while. When you do that handoff, that pre-sale, at least for us, could be 3 to 6 months. All that context is lost. So they don't remember that you had that conversation about that feature they wanted. So we now have an account management team, which is actually the same person. So whoever you first do the demo with actually manages you through customer success. There's two benefits. One benefit is when they sell you the product, they're not really selling it to you, that you're buying it because they're going to have to support you with that. I mean, they're not the first tier support, but they're the account manager still. So if they sell you a product that ultimately is not a good fit, it's their pain to
Mhm.
bear, not someone else's. So you don't get
Yeah.
people, I think, inappropriately selling a customer and then creating customer success nightmares, which is definitely a problem if you have a separate sales and a success team. And the other thing is we do have that knowledge that remains and is constant, which is good.
That's good. The next section, or I guess the wrap up sections here, as we're at 52 past,
Sure.
where would you like to be in 6 to 12 months in terms of, you can talk about org size, revenue growth, customer base, pretty much open
Right,
here.
right. I mean, I say a year for so let's say a year from now, maybe 3 years from now. So a year from now, uh, hopefully 25% bigger in org and in revenue, maybe more, 30%. I think our projections show about 20, so I'd like to be ahead of the projection. 3 years from now, would like I would think we would be looking at potentially taking an investment round, actually, potentially to grow faster. And I would also, in the next year more tactically, with the Amazon relationship, I would love to get the inbound sales part of it really working strongly. So we're not relying on purely our current inbound revenue comes from either direct inbound or from our service partners, which is a small amount. And the Amazon inbound is still small, is minimal. So I would say I'd like to get that to be about 20% of our revenue is coming from Amazon originated leads, which it has not. That would be like the dream scenario in a year. And then 3 years from now, I would love it that we are not only are we, for example, getting a significant amount of business from Amazon, but we represent a significant amount of business to Amazon. That we are someone that they would actually say, we need without Inflectra, we couldn't go after these kinds of customers. Um, which I think they would say about some of their larger partners, like an Elastic or a GitLab.
Yeah.
There's some very big companies that Amazon works with, which truly bring Amazon into relationships that they wouldn't have. I would love for us to have that relationship in bidirectionally with Amazon, where we are considered strategic to them, as well as them being strategic to us in 3 years.
No, yeah, that definitely hits the nail on the head as far as what I was looking for.
Hmm.
Is there, so, all right, I think this is towards the end here. If you had a magic wand,
Hmm.
what would be the top thing that you would fix if you could do it?
The top thing, honestly, would be brand recognition. I mean, if it was a truly magic wand, everyone's heard of us because I would say that's the number one impediment we fight every day is that when people hear of us, they see the product, they try it out, they use it, they like it, it's great. The problem is the one challenge when you're bootstrapped, especially when you're in an industry where most of your competitors are funded, which most of ours are, I
Yes,
think
yes.
almost all of them are. They have 10 times your marketing budget. They're on AdWords. They can wrap the sides of buses and train stations and airports with their logos and marketing materials. So at some point, that gets tiring. So a magic wand, brand recognition every dollar of brand recognition is 10 to 100x value,
Yes,
but it's so, as you know, it's so hard to achieve. And
yes.
people always say, "Oh, how come I've never heard of you? I've heard of Microsoft." I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, we get that. Like, I've not heard of you, but I've heard of Microsoft because we do compete with them on some products. I'm like, well, that's just think of that question for a second. That it boggles your mind that people would honestly ask that question. But I get why. It's completely valid and true. Because and that's always going to be make your job 10 times harder. And so I would say the magic one would be if you could find some guerrilla campaign or some way to get into the zeitgeist,
Yes.
that is the holy grail for any company. And it's hard to do. And if you do it, it's magical. So I'd say that's the magic one.
No, that's brilliant. Yes, brand recognition is a struggle, especially if you're bootstrapped and if you're in that SMB sector. So, is our specialty. I would love to have the opportunity to discuss with you in a little more
Sure.
detail on different call. So, I think this concludes our recording for the day. And Adam, I really appreciate the time that you made to be on our show. And, we'll definitely be sharing a copy of this for your social as well. So,
Thank you.
feel free to use it as you may see fit. But with any concluding words before I kill the recording?
Well, I want to say thank you for having me on the show. And for those who are listening and watching, being bootstrapped is a superpower sometimes. It can be the hardest day of your life and it can be the best. It can also be the worst. But I would always say, at least for me anyway, the worst day of my life running a bootstrap company is still better than most of the days I had working for another company. So when you have a bad day, which you will always have, just remember that. And then the next day will usually be better. So that's the one thing. Keep at it. Keep striving forward. You can do it.
That's excellent message. Thank you so much for for that message. I'm sure it will resonate with a lot of founders that follow us. So really
Well, hopefully.
appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.